Hi folks, welcome to your Monday. It is Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK. I'm not sure if it is Bank Holiday where you are. I hope you're having a day off, and if you're not, then, best of luck with the rest of your working day. Let's hopefully get you through it. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is also down below, and there is a merch store as well, which you can get some really cool stuff off there if you want to. And also Composite Games, they do help out the channel. If you want to buy any models in the recent near future, then use the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 5% off at checkout. Not only do you get some money off of your till heading out, but you also help the channel out a little bit as well. So, moving swiftly on after the housekeeping. So I was going to do several hobby nightmares today because they are piling up, and if you want to send me any more, because I've not got all of this week's, well, for one, I've not got any for Friday yet, so if you want some read out this week, send me them on the email down below, which is the Hobby Nightmares email down below, and they may be read out this week. But I've been doing a bit of research over the weekend into 10th edition and what we know. I've done 2 videos on this already. One of the things that I wanted to cover, and we will be reading up on it later on when we actually go into the actual things that Games Workshop have said towards 10th edition, was the codexes. Now, what is going to happen to them? We did an entire video of this last time, and before I get into whatever's going on with faction rules or stratagems, because we've seen a few of those in recent times, I wanted to finish off this point from last time. I think I'm right. I had a lot of people telling me, hey, it looks like you've misremembered or misinterpreted what they said about codexes. The codexes aren't going to have rules in them. At no point, guys, do they say that codexes will not have rules in them. If you can find that quote, send it to me, put it in the comment section down below, and prove yourself right. I've read over this weekend. At no point have Games Workshop said that codexes in 10th edition will have no rules in them. Okay? I think I'm right. Codexes will eventually replace the free rules that we're getting. Yes, we are getting free rules at the start of 10th edition, but they will not stay free. You will have to pay money for the codexes, and they will have a marked advantage over those armies that don't have codexes yet. So yes, technically, and we'll get into Games Workshop's insidious language later, technically, you could play with free rules for the entirety of 10th edition, right? Technically. Just as in 8th edition, you could technically play with your index for the entirety of 8th edition. But if you had an Imperial Guard army playing just with the index, and you had an Imperial Guard army playing with the Imperial Guard Codex, especially when it released in its broken state, guess who's winning that battle 9 times out of 10? Yeah, the army with the Codex will be winning 9 times out of 10. So please don't at me saying, hey, no, Games Workshop are going to do something really amazing. We're not going to have any rules in codexes. Yes, we are. And once more, those codexes will likely be more expensive than the codexes in 8th and 9th edition. Okay? That what they do is a gateway drug. What they do is they give you the indexes for free, they make you enjoy the game, and then all of a sudden, other people start getting codexes and start beating the living hell out of you on the tabletop with their new overpowered rules. And instead of saying, hey, that's overpowered, do you know what people say? Where's my codex? And then you go out and you buy your codex, and away we go again with the power creep. The same thing will happen in 10th, as happened in 9th, as happened in 8th. Alright, get that out the way. Just proving my point there. And Games Workshop will further prove my point as we go into reading. Boom. All of our loose news from Games Workshop when it comes to a mind-blowing edition of Warhammer 40,000, right? We're going to read through these 3 articles, because all 3 of them are from different sources. Well, 2 of them from the same source, and 1 of them from Spiky Bits. And we're going to dissect the news and see what it actually means coming towards 10th edition as we come up upon the release date that should be in June sometime. So, let's run into it, shall we? Alright. So this is a mind-blowing new edition of Warhammer 40,000 is coming. This is from last month. Okay, so we've nearly had a full month to read this, so I don't know why people are still telling me that codexes are, apparently going to have rules in them, but there we go. So, we've seen a hero return from the pages of history. A whole army of celestial lizards and had a peek at the humans of the mortal realms, but today, the biggest news is the arrival of a whole new edition of Warhammer 40,000. Okay, skip this bit. Intro. Lore. Were you foolish enough to think that Hive Fleet Leviathan had been beaten for good at Baal? That was just the vanguard. Now the rest have arrived, and they've evolved. Okay, so, bigger, badder Tyranids. The Imperium, reeling from multiple existential conflicts on too many fronts, is exposed, as its main forces are on the wrong side of the galaxy. Leviathan, previously thought humbled, is only just getting started. I think Leviathan is the one that's coming up from the galactic plane rather than coming in from the side. It's actually coming up from the bottom, so it can like literally appear anywhere at any time. The largest hive fleet in history has emerged, swarming across the galactic west, laying waste to hundreds of worlds, unable to muster a meaningful defense in the case of this living apocalypse. Without the full weight of the war machine to call upon, Imperial commanders dispatch elite teams in a desperate bid to stem the endless tide of Tyranids. Taking out the Synapse leaders will buy precious time for the lumbering might of mankind's war machine to mobilise. And elite for a Space Marine chapter means the first company. The Terminators are back. Yes, we're getting new Terminators, as we know. Okay, so let's skip the next bit. All about models. We all know this stuff. Old news now. But, hey, let's go into the game, right? There are some big changes to gameplay, which has been completely overhauled for this edition. We started with what the fans were telling us about the game you play. You told us that while Warhammer 40,000 is a fun game, there are parts that are overcomplicated, and that the learning curve for new players is pretty steep. In particular, many felt there were too many stratagems and too much complexity in each army selection. We've listened, and the new edition has been simplified, but it's not simple. That's their tagline for the entire thing, isn't it? That is still the rich, deep war game that you know and love. We've just doubled down on the best bits. So instead of a huge raft of faction stratagems, you'll have access to a handful of the best ones. Fair enough. There are also a few new universal stratagems, which anyone can use, that allow you to be reactive in your opponent's turn. So, here's one thing that I'm hoping happens here. The universal stratagems are the only ones that let you be operative in your opponent's turn. The problem that we might see is when the codexes come out and they have stratagems in them, in which you are able to use faction-only stratagems in your opponent's turn. That's when we start to see the breaking point. Universal stratagems, reactions that anyone can do, those are fine. In general, you know, they shouldn't slow the game down that much. The problem's going to come when we start getting codexes brought out that have faction-specific stratagems in them that slow down the opponent's turn. That's when we're going to start to see the bloat. I'm telling you now, that's what's going to happen. But anyway, there are improvements like this everywhere, in turn structure, army selection, morale, terrain, missions, the ways in which characters interact with units, and more. The list goes on, and we'll explain more about each of these changes in the coming weeks. Okay, so what does this mean for my army and my codex? Alright, important stuff here. Let's analyse the language. Maybe the biggest change in the new edition is the datasheets. For those of you who don't know, datasheets are the things that your army's stats come on, essentially. The way core information on a datasheet is presented has changed, and with it we look at the opportunity to restat every unit in Warhammer 40,000. Every unit has new and re-evaluated rules, so every army will feel new from day one of the new edition. This huge update has also given us an opportunity to look again at lethality and durability across the entire game, and rebalance it at a stroke, something we could never do outside of the launch of a new edition. This example will show you what we mean. Alright, so we've got Termagants here, movement 6, toughness 3, their save is 5+, they have 1 wound each, they have a leadership of 8+, and the objective secured is 2, which means you need at least 2 of them, I think, to secure an objective. And as you can see, at a glance, everything's very, 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 very simple, okay? We don't really have very many special rules. We have faction abilities like Synapse and Skulking Horrors, so once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move, we're within 9 inches of this unit. If this unit is not within the engagement range of more than 1 enemy unit, it can make a normal move up to a d6. Alright, so, again, so that they can stalk people from the shadows. Very simple, very nicely written rule. Dead easy, right? Really nice stuff. You also told us that you didn't want to carry as many books with you to games. I'll get into this language a little bit later on, but you also told us that you didn't want to carry as many books with you to games. On the first day of the new edition, the rules for every datasheet in 40k will be free to download, or available to buy as convenient and portable card decks. Even your faction and army rules now take up just a couple of pages. Great, okay? And this is the thing people were pointed to when they were saying, there are no codexes that have rules in them. Yes, there are. The whole experience is more convenient, compact, and even and efficient than ever before, and it delivers amazing games with less desperate leafing between pages for that one special rule that you're looking for. Alrighty. Army selection is equally straightforward. Pick a faction, a warlord, and the units you like. Just no more than 3 of any one type, and stay within your points limit. That's it. You no longer have to fit your army into a force organisation chart or compromise on the army you really want. This is something that I really like, because I ignored this rule completely with friends, so it may as well not be in the game. Okay? We never did force organisation, ever. Because some of us liked the look of melee units, of troop units more than anyone else. Some people like the look of blade guard units. Some people like the look of... So use more of them than you want. Okay? It's fine. It's a game between friends. It's a game between friends that can just, you know... You can ad hoc it between yourselves as you play the game. You don't need Games Workshop telling you what you can have in your army and when. In something like a force organisation chart, it sucks away all of the fun, or some of the fun of building your own army in exactly the way that you want to. So I like the fact that they've done away with that. It's an archaic principle that doesn't need to be in the game anymore. It's a simple and liberating system and opens the door for all kinds of fun, thematic or unusual armies. Very nice. These big changes to rules and armies mean that the current range of codexes are being retired. Now, again, the current range of codexes are being retired. As in, this doesn't mean codexes as they are, it means the codexes that you bought for 9th edition. So the codexes that you bought for 9th edition can no longer be used with the new rules. This was the same in 8th edition, this was the same in 9th edition, it was the same in 7th, 6th, 5th. Every single edition that's had codexes, your codexes from a previous edition are either incompatible or they literally don't work with the new edition. It's been the same throughout history of Warhammer, right? You technically can use codexes from earlier editions with earlier forms of games, like 5th to 6th, and 6th edition to 7th, things like that. But your opponent would normally, like, you know, bat their eyelids and be like, that's not this session, that's not this edition's codex. Especially if your edition from last edition was quite powerful, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's always happened. They're not saying anything new here. The rules in them don't work with the new edition. Okay, so they're literally telling you, they're not retiring the concept of codexes. That's not what's going away. Just your codexes that you bought. So you've wasted your money. If you bought a codex over the past 3 or 4 months, congratulations, you've just wasted £30 to £35. The rules in them don't work with the new edition, but remember that the rules for all of your units will be free online at launch. Okay, here we go. Free online at launch. At launch. Again, guys, this doesn't mean codexes will not be coming with 10th edition. Of course they are. They're giving away money if they don't do that. In my ideal world, I've always said, get rid of codexes altogether. In my ideal world, get rid of them altogether. Bring out, you know, the data sheets, all that sort of stuff that's free that you're bringing out, brilliant. And bring out limited edition, you know, codexes that have the same rules in them, but with loads of lore and background stuff, right? That stuff would still sell. That stuff would still sell. But it's a limited edition thing that gives you... It's kind of like paying for cosmetics in a video game, right? It gives you no tangible advantage in the game. It just gives you extra stuff. That's what we should be doing with codexes. That's not what we're going to be doing, though. They will be bringing out actual codexes coming out. But all the rules will be free online at launch. Great. Wonderful stuff. Don't go throwing your codexes in the recycling just yet. As well as months of gaming left with the current edition, your codexes remain a rich repository of lore and inspiration for your army, and one that won't be immediately replaced. Alright, it won't be immediately replaced. Here we go, guys. Codexes will return in time to replace the free rules. Right, does anyone else want to make the point to me that I'm reading things wrong and that Games Workshop aren't bringing out codexes anymore? Does anyone want to make that point to me now, that Games Workshop will not be replacing the free rules with stuff from codexes? They've literally told you that they are. I didn't do this last time because I was trusting people to just follow along and get what I was saying. I've got to read this out black and white verbatim, though, for certain people who don't seem to get it, right? Codexes will return in time to replace the free rules. That means the rules that you have from your index will not be as good as the rules you're going to get from your codexes, because they're not going to dumb down factions, are they, that they want to sell you? Of course they're not. So the codexes will be more powerful than the ones that are in the index. Just is what it is, guys. Just is what it is. You know, and don't get me wrong, 90% of you got it, no problem. I just don't want the 10% of you who were arguing the toss and saying that that's not right. You know, codexes aren't going to have rules in them. I don't want you to be disappointed and crushed when the codexes come out and it's the same old that we've seen time and time again, okay? I'm warning you now. 10th will be just like 9th, and it will be just like 8th. Alright? So codexes will return in time to replace the free rules. But when they do, the complexity of the game won't increase, okay? Thanks to a one-in, one-out ethos for army and sub-faction rules. Effectively, you will only ever need your unit datasheets, the 2 pages of rules that govern your chosen army, available in your codex or on cards or digitally, plus the core rules, and whatever mission you're playing. So, what they're saying is, with this one-in, one-out rule set, okay? Alright? A lot of people look at the second half of this sentence and they're like, oh, that means that the rules that we're getting in the codex are the same. No, they're not. No, they're not. Thanks to a one-in, one-out ethos for army and sub-faction rules. That means you can't mix and match index rules with codex rules. You play one or you play the other. It's that simple. If you have the codex, you can play the codex. That's fine, alright? And that's why they say, effectively, you will only ever need your unit datasheet and the 2 pages of rules that govern your chosen army, right? That's fine. But this is very, very, very clever language, right? They're saying you only ever need the free stuff. And all the free stuff is always, as well, available in your codex and cards or digitally as well, right? No problem. What they're not saying is, hey, by the way, you can play with the free rules. You can play with the free stuff that you get at launch. Technically, you can. Just like in 8, you could. In 8th edition, you could play with the index rules the entire way through the edition if you wanted to. But you wouldn't. Not if your army had a new codex. You wouldn't. Right? The same thing is going to happen in 10th. Please don't be disappointed. Don't let yourself get sucked in by this very, very, very clever language. Because this is a misnomer. It's telling you 2 things at the same time. It's telling you codexes will replace the free rules, but it's then saying you only need the free rules anyway, because they're the ones, because they'll be available in your codex. What? If they're replacing the rules, if the codexes are replacing the free rules, then how are the rules that we're getting in the codex not different to the free rules? Of course they are. They are different. We will be getting different rules in the codex than will be in the index. And by the way, Games Workshop will be kind of irresponsible if they didn't change the rules. Because by the time a codex is released for a certain army, they've had months of global playtesting going on, where they can sort of look at the index, see what works, see what doesn't, and sort of adjust things accordingly going into the codex. The codex will always be the standard, the finished set of rules for your army in every single edition of Warhammer 40,000. That's it. Okay? So the rules that you get in the indexes will not be the same as the ones in the codex. even mechanically, they can't be the ones that are right that are in the Codex, because they will want to change things, and they don't want to do things with FAQs anymore. We've already seen that from several different interviews that they've done. They don't want to do FAQs anymore. They don't want to do rule updates and things like White Dwarf anymore. They want to just give you the rules, give one big update with the Codex, and that's it. They want the game to be that stable and that reliable, which I think is a very, very, very laudable attitude. What I don't like is the language in paragraphs like this, right? I just don't like them. I don't like this at all. I really don't, because they're telling you one thing and then trying to pull the wool over your eyes with another, and it doesn't wash with me. It just doesn't. Okay, the rules in the Codex will be different and better than the index rules that we're getting for free at the start of the edition. That's just what's going to happen, guys. That's just what's going to happen. So, there's one exception of note: the Arcs of Omen books and boarding patrols will persist, so you can keep purging those space hulks into the new edition and beyond. Likewise, for those Eternal Crusaders out there who... Okay, this is all other stuff. And Combat Patrol, lovely stuff. I love Combat Patrol. In fact, the tournament that we're going to do together for Northern Exile in Liverpool or another city in the UK will be using Combat Patrol. We'll be doing a Combat Patrol tournament at that time, which will be really, really, really cool. But anyway, moving on. Okay, moving on. Faction rules are leaner and cleaner in the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. Let's see, shall we? Let's see. Last week, we had a look at how to build an army in the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. One of the major choices you'll make after choosing which faction you like the most, of course, is what detachment rules you'll pick. These determine how your specific army performs, providing special rules and unique traits, as well as unique stratagems and enhancements. Alright. The index cards released at the dawn of the new edition will each come with one detachment, representing a common fighting style for a particular faction, and more will emerge as new codexes arrive and armies expand. Okay. Once again, they're telling you bigger, badder, better stuff will come when the codexes arrive. Guys, they're telling you in black and white. They're telling you in black and white. 10th edition will be just like 9th, will be just like 8th. That's just how it's going to be, okay? We're not... I realise that what I wanted isn't happening. I know that. I've accepted that. What I wanted isn't happening. I wanted no codexes, alright? And rules at the start that are just ready to go, right? We're ready to go. Codexes should be rules that are free in the codex with a load of lore and things like that. That's what I wanted. That's not what we're getting, okay? That is not what we're getting. There is one golden rule. Every detachment must fit onto a single double-page spread. This means you'll never need to go leafing through an armful of rule books to find that key stratagem. You'll have all of your core rules, your datasheets, and the 2 pages of unique rules, and you're good to go. I love that. I love that. That means the game should speed up a lot. At least at the start of the new edition. Remember, simplified, not simple. On top of this, every faction gets an army ability regardless of which detachment you're using. This represents the totemic aspect of that faction in war. So the Orcs get War, Tyranids get Synapse, the Astra Militarum get Orders, and the Space Marines get Oath of Moment. Let's have a little look at that, shall we? This is the faction. Every Space Marine from Grey Knights to Black Templars to everybody will have these. Every one of them will have these. Oath of Moment. If your army faction is Adeptus Astartes, at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army. Until the start of your next command phase, which happens at the start of your turn, each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, you can re-roll the to hit roll, and you may re-roll the wound roll. So basically you're saying that unit over there is getting pummeled. So you're re-rolling all of your hit rolls and all of your wound rolls. That's incredible. That is an incredibly powerful piece of kit there. Especially because normally it's, melee to hit rolls or shooting to hit rolls. This is standard. So shooting, melee, whatever you do, psychic, whatever, you're redoing your hit rolls and your wound rolls. That's incredible. That is very, 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 very powerful. Especially in an edition where it says rerolls are significantly less common in the new edition. So the ability to single out one unit per round for complete annihilation reinforces the Space Marines' reputation for disciplined, targeted hammer strikes. Very clever, very good use of the rules. I like it. Okay. Exploring detachments. The Tyranids begin their adventures in the new edition as an invasion fleet, focused on swift evolution and overwhelming offense. The invasion fleet's detachment rule is hyper-adaptations, which provide 3 different abilities you can choose from each battle, depending on what you're fighting. Swarming Instincts adds the sustained hits 1 ability to your attacks against infantry and swarms, landing an extra blow whenever you score a critical hit. That's the new term for rolling an unmodified 6 on your to hit roll. Look at you, getting into D&D Games Workshop. Naughty, naughty people. This will be your go-to adaptation to handle an enemy horde or a stoic wall of elite infantry. So let's have a little look, shall we? These are the 3 hyper adaptations of the Tyranids going into the new edition. So, at the start of the first battle round, select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active for Tyranid units from your army until the end of the battle. Alright. Number 1 is Swarming Instincts, which we've already seen. Each time a Tyranid's model with this hyper-adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy infantry or swarm unit, that attack has the Sustained Hits 1 ability. So, roll a 6, you get another hit. Hyper-Aggression. Each time a Tyranid model with this hyper-adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy monster or vehicle unit, that attack has the Lethal Hits ability. I'm assuming we'll get into what these mean a bit later on. And Hive Predators. Each time a Tyranid's model with this hyper-adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy character unit, if a critical hit is scored, a 6, that attack has the Precision ability. Okay. Hopefully we'll get into these a bit later on, but I'm assuming all of these are things like instant death and removes all saves and things like that. If your targets are tough vehicles and monsters, you can instead pick the hyper-aggression and add lethal hits to your attacks against them, meaning you'll automatically wound on a critical hit. Adapt and overcome. Okay, so basically what this means is every time you make a critical hit against a monster or vehicle, you score a wound. You don't need to roll to wound. Brilliant. That's going to bring down big meaty things very quickly. I like these rules, man. These rules are brilliant. For their army ability, the Tyranids can manipulate battle shock tests, basically morale tests, with Synapse and Shadow in the Warp, but we'll find out what those do when we have a closer look at the Tyranid faction next month, okay? But brilliant stuff so far. If you're a Tyranid player, be excited. These are good. These are very, very good. The fact that you get to choose as well which one you want at the start of the battle when Space Marines only get the one, that's good. That's good. Stratagems and enhancements. By the way, is there anyone now saying that it's not going to be Dark Angels against Tyranids for the new editions? Definitely going to be in the core box set. Stratagems and enhancements are also now a part of your detachment. In the previous edition, many players found it difficult to juggle and remember 2 or 3 dozen stratagems. Yeah, no shit. Those days are gone. No detachment will contain more than 6 stratagems. Add to that a robust universal menu of 12 core stratagems, and there's now simply less to keep track of. Well, we found our first sticking point. So, no detachment will contain more than 6 stratagems. Let's just say it's going to have 6. Right, let's just say 6. It's a good number. I like 6. That's fine. Add to that a robust universal menu of 12 core stratagems. So that's 18 stratagems for you to keep track of for each army that you have. That's not really less for me. Less for me would be less than 10. Stratagems should be good enough and well written enough that we have less than 10 of them, and we are able to basically have a really well balanced and core game to jump off of. Okay? I'm going to be honest, 18 is a bit much. You know, the range will probably be between 14 and 20, right? Between 14 and 20, that's way too much. For a game that's telling us that it's getting simpler and quicker, stratagems being in the game, 14 to 20 is still far too much, guys. It's still far too much. For per army, no, come on. Come on, below 10. Have the balls below 10, please. We want below 10. We want 4 really big core ones that are just for your army, and 4 general ones that can be used by any army in the game. That's enough. That is enough. We don't need any more than that. Anyway. Armour of Contempt returns as a stratagem for the Gladius Task Force, the first Space Marine detachment. Okay, so is Armour of Contempt does it only come with the Gladius Task Force? Because Armour of Contempt used to be a big thing for everybody. So, this is what I like though. I like this. When target effect. Nice, simple, over the table rules. Black and white. When you can do it, who it targets, and what effect it has. When your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. That I don't like. Okay? You have to remember a specific time in each and every single battle. Right? I don't like that. The stratagem should be generally use them whenever you want. In your phase, in your turn, right? It shouldn't be you got to use it now or now. Out of like say 10 actions that you do per turn, you know, 10 parts of a turn, right, that are in a turn, you shouldn't be like you can use it in part 4 or part 9 and that's it. That's a mental load that we don't need. It really is. I don't like the writing of this at all. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy has selected its targets. Like, that would be enough. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, that's complicated enough, but just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, come on, man. Come on. Target one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. In fact, until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, worsen the armor penetration tactic of that attack by 1. That's a lot more simple than the original Armour of Contempt, but it is also a huge nerf of Armour of Contempt. It used to be a faction-wide thing that everybody would get it. If you're a Space Marine, you'd get much beefier things. You would get much harder to kill. Now you've actually got to use command points and stratagems to give your forces that bit of beefiness towards incoming attacks and stuff. I'd like this rewritten. When it needs to be rewritten for me. No need for it to be that complicated. You can use it at this time, or this time, or this time, or this time. Just tell us. That should just say when your opponent is attacking one of your units. That's fine. When your opponent is attacking one of your units. You know, or when your opponent has selected one of your units to attack. Use Armour of Contempt. Doesn't have to be worded this way. Bit ridiculous. Anyway. Enhancements replace the old relics and warlord traits, offering a unified list of unique upgrades for each detachment. Unlike stratagems, there are no core enhancements. Each one is tied to a specific detachment for a specific faction, tailored to your roster and your abilities. These include refined personal war gear like artificer armor, or tactical talents that allow a commander to enhance the unit they're leading. Okay, so relics and things are a thing of the past, it seems. That's a good and a bad thing for me. I used to like, attaching certain things to certain characters to make really powerful combinations. But I guess certain things are going to be thrown out with the bathwater. I agree. Certain things are not going to be held as standard going forwards, and that's something that I can get behind. So, Artificer Armor. Adeptus Astartes model only. The bearer has a save characteristic of 2+, and the feel no pain 5+ ability. Basically what that is, you always get the 5+. Even if it goes above your invulnerable save, you always get a 5+. Alright. Hold the phone. Did we say leading units? Find out next week. Okay, so this is going to be next week's stuff. Okay, fair enough. Alright, so those are the snippets of information that Games Workshop have given us going forwards. Let's have a little look before we end the session today, looking at 10th edition, on what is coming with the datasheet rules confirmed by GW. Because we have a few more here, like a full datasheet. You may need to zoom in if you want to have a little look at this. But anyway, I love the new datasheets. I think these are a cracking idea in terms of being very simply laid out and very to the point in terms of information that you're going to want to have at hand when you're using any sort of models in Warhammer 40,000. I love it. The things like the teleport Homer is fine. You know, at the start of battle, you can set up one teleport Homer token for this unit anywhere on the battlefield that is not in your opponent's deployment zone. If you do, once per battle, you can target this unit with the rapid ingress stratagem for 0 CP. But when resolving that stratagem, you must set this unit up within 3 inches horizontally of that token, and not within 9 inches horizontally of any enemy models. That token is then removed. So, one thing it doesn't tell you there is whether you need to tell your opponent where the teleport Homer is. You know, it doesn't say that, does it? It's one loophole we've already found on a single read-through. Like, you don't really need to tell them where it is. You can just, like, sort of put it down on the tabletop and just be like, that's going there, and carry on with the game, you know? I want to get, like actual bleeping lights as teleport Homers. So it'll really freak out the opposition. In fact, a teleport Homer would be really good to use as a denial of space tactic. Do you know what I mean? Like, put it down somewhere where you know you're going to want to be, and or where you know you want your opponent to swarm. Because most of my opponents know that I like to deep strike. So what they like to do is they like to keep their army very close together, so I can't get in between them and attack them, or get in behind them and attack them. You know what I mean? So what would be really cool to do is set up a teleport Homer where I want the enemy to congregate, to keep them over there, right? To have them congregate there so I can't get in, and then teleport completely somewhere else in the battlefield and an area that is weak. I like that. That's a really, really cool way, but I'd rather you told me in the teleport Homer rules that I have to tell the opponent where it is. Because not everybody will. People will look at that rule and say, well, it doesn't say I need to tell you. It says on no part here, because again, Games Workshop, you're trusting people not to be dicks. Don't. Because especially at tournaments, they will be. They will be dicks. Please tell us that we need to set up teleport Homers, and the other person needs to know, your opponent needs to know where they are and what they are, right? Right, so, Fury, I mean, of course, people will say that's not very realistic, right? It's not very realistic because, you know, in reality, you wouldn't tell your opponent where you were bringing in your troops. That is true. But also, in a game like this, if you put our teleport Homers down mentally of where they are, we can just move them around. We can cheat, essentially. So yeah, you need to tell your opponent where they are. Fury of the First. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any and or all modifiers to that attack's ballistic skill or weapon skill characteristic, and or to the hit roll. Okay, cool. Basically, they can use big meaty weapons without any drawbacks. In addition, each time a model in this unit makes an attack that targets the enemy unit you selected for the Oath of Moment ability this turn, add 1 to the hit roll. So, if you combine that with your Oath of Moment, these guys can wreck certain units. Absolutely wreck them with certain units. That's really cool. I like that. I like that a lot. So, they say, Spiky Bits say, one of the core design goals of the new edition of Warhammer 40,000 is to make notably tough units tougher, and allow them to withstand punishment befitting their reputation. Terminators, for instance, retain their iconic 2+ save, but get an increased toughness of 5 and a 4+ invulnerable save right out of the gate, boosting their resistance to amassed low-strength weapons and armor-piercing cannons alike. Their leadership score of 6 is also excellent in the new edition, on par with most characters, though with an effective control score of just 1, they'll need some help from intercessors to hold down the fort. Fair enough. Yeah, they're not meant to hold things. They're meant to wade in and deal things. But I like where we're going with this, alright? So rapid fire is another thing that I wanted to get into. Because as a Grey Knight player, all of my weapons do this. Weapons with the rapid fire X in their profile are known as rapid fire weapons. Each time such a weapon targets a unit within half of that weapon's range, the attack's characteristic of the weapon is increased by the amount denoted by X. So, if it's rapid fire 2, if it's within half range, you get 2 shots. Essentially, the same as we go through for 8th edition and 9th edition, essentially. Storm Bolters and Power Fists go together like cheese and wine. The former has a new look rapid fire weapon ability that gives extra shots within half range. So with rapid fire 2, on top of the weapon's base attacks of value of 2, they can still fire 4 times within 12 inches. That's awesome. That is awesome. Nothing too crazy, but this does give the option for rapid fire weapons to get 3 or 4 times multiplier and a ton of shots. Here we go. Anti. This is something that for me as a Grey Knight player, I need to really look into. Anti and deep striking. So, weapons with the anti keyword X in their profile are known as anti-weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon against a target with the keyword after the word anti, an unmodified roll of X plus scores a critical wound. So scores a wound that goes through everything, essentially. That's going to be awesome for Grey Knights, because I'm guessing that most of our weapons will be anti-demon. Or daemon, as you go into it. I am a bit worried that I will never ever see a demon player ever again with rules like this, because it will basically mean that their games against Grey Knights are either relying on absolute luck, or they're relying on, well, me not rolling very well, but to not get them off the field of battle. But anyway. Rapid ingress and deep striking. So this is something that I wanted to know. So rapid ingress is what you use for the teleport homers. I like these teleport homers, by the way. So, when end of your opponent's movement phase. So as soon as they've moved around a bit, is when you bring in it's when you deep strike your units in. This to me is something that I was a bit confused on. Maybe you can clear it up for me in the comment section down below. But this to me, at the end of I'm used to doing deep strikes at the end of my movement phase. At the end of my movement phase, my command phase essentially, or my movement phase, that's when I do deep striking. That's how it's been for the past few editions. Will people tell me, is this the actual deep striking rule now? Is this it? Or is there a deep strike rule that does something different? Because the only thing I've seen is this. Rapid ingress stratagem and deep striking, right? Are they one and the same? Or can I still deep strike the normal way? Because deep striking at the end of my opponent's movement phase, it sort of takes away my ability to charge, which is what I want to do straight away from deep striking. I don't want to deep strike and shoot. I think that's lame. I want to deep strike and charge. You know, kind of sucks, but anyway. Clear it up for me in the comment section down below. If you know that deep striking and a rapid ingress are 2 different things that do exactly the same thing at different times, let me know in the comment section down below. I've not been able to find anything yet, but yeah. Target 1 unit of your army that is in reserves. Effect, your unit can arrive on the battlefield as if it were the reinforcement step of your movement phase. I may have cleared it up for myself there. Your unit can arrive on the battlefield as if it... Okay, so this is another form of deep striking then. Okay, if I am right on that, if I've read that correctly, let me know in the comment section down below. Restrictions, you cannot use this stratagem to enable a unit to arrive on the battlefield during a battle round it would not normally be able to do so in. So you can't do it in the shooting phase or the assault phase or anything like that. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Alrighty. So that is what we know so far about 10th edition going forwards, or essentially what we know about rapid ingress and the way that the rules are changing and morphing through. To close off, I want to say a few things about where I think 10th edition is going, and why I think we have to be very, very, very careful about the language Games Workshop uses going forward. So, the art of looking at 10th edition, and we're all going to be doing it. A lot of my videos will be focusing on 10th edition and new news as it comes out, and reading about different things as they happen. The art of looking at 10th edition is the art of wondering just how far Games Workshop's promises will hold. Their language is extremely clever. We can see this with the amount of people who literally saw me read Games Workshop telling us Codex are coming back in a very roundabout way, who then told me, no, actually, Codexes are done and will only have lore in them. No guys, they won't. Codexes will have rules just like our current ones. Nothing is changing. Games Workshop are just wording how they announce this certain thing in a very, very clever and insidious way to get you doubting yourselves. But make no mistake, Games Workshop will never ever leave money on the table, and they will never miss a chance to nickel and dime the shit out of you. Games Workshop tell us that the game is streamlined, it has its fat trimmed down by a lot, that stratagems are pared down, the game is more accessible, but is in that sweet spot of easy to pick up but hard to master. I am more than happy to allow Games Workshop to make these promises and to believe in them. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think we also need to treat the 10th edition of the game with a massive amount of caution, however. Let's not forget that both the 8th and 9th editions started with very similar grand sweeping promises in terms of streamlining the game, balancing, and more affordable business practices. The language of Games Workshop, even in this, does not make any mention of prices. They simply say, we are told by you that you hate lugging around several books for your army and so are streamlining the rules. I will be honest, Games Workshop, I'd rather not have to spend upwards of £120 on rulebooks and codexes with each new edition of the game and still have to cart around some extra books. Cheers, right? I would rather cart around the extra books than give you another 120 quid every single time a new edition comes out. Thanks, you know? Let me choose, please. The language they use has to be analysed and looked at for how insidious it is in its promises that can in one case be easily backed out of at the drop of a hat, and in the second case, they sidestep completely the most pressing issues that could hurt their bottom line. The ridiculous pricing and constant power creep of their games to try and force the customer into spending in a time of complete austerity for the most of us. I brought this up time and time again. We are now these days a lot poorer than we have been in the past, and Games Workshop keep ranking up the prices, and they keep giving you insidious language to make you pat them on the back, and they'll sweep in the codexes later on to being extremely powerful. There will always be guys like me who see through that veneer, but we are the minority. So please listen to a video like this and make sure that you're going into the new edition with your eyes open and facing forwards, knowing what they're trying to pull off here, and make your own decision on whether it's worth you putting money into their wallet to get your codex and things like that. But Games Workshop, you know, the more you lie on their behalf and spread disinformation on their behalf, like with the codexes, the more ammunition and leeway you give this massive corporation to take your money and give you relatively little in return. Think on, please. Please think on this before you come running to their defense again, alright? Alright. I love you all a long time. I will be back tomorrow. I'm doing a recording with Arch, not Arch, I'll be doing a recording with Outer Circle tomorrow, and we're going to be doing a little look on the lore, a more of a fun video where we're going to have a little bit of a rant about how the lore's going and how it can be broken in several different ways going forwards. So, love you all a long time. I will speak to you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. More Hobby Nightmares will be on Wednesday. Have a good one. Bye now.